What's going on, guys? Welcome into another edition of the Male Mind Podcast, the number one podcast in this entire building. Thank you guys for being here. Today we have an amazing guest, someone that I've heard a lot about. I'm meeting him for the first time.
Yeah.
But Lou he's always mentioning this guy. You got to meet this guy. So finally, he is here. Lou, go ahead and introduce our guest for today.
Of course. What is up, you guys? Is it episode what?
16.
16?
16. Don't fuck it up. 16.
Episode 16 of the Male Mind Podcast. Again, bringing you guys another amazing speaker. I'm actually very, very excited because I've known this individual for 11 years now, through business, through family. I'm involved in his life. But, you know, Brandon Holmes, he's been around for a minute. And he's like, you're like the ninja of a lot of things, bro. You do a lot. So literally, he's a CEO of his own company, Solar King. Used to work for Vivint, had United Solar. You were with Legacy for a while, right? He's a speaker as well, father, husband, and honestly, you can still ball. I know you can still ball a little bit.
Shoes are hung up. Ball shoes are hung up. No
But yeah,
balling.
thank you so much for being here, Brandon. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, first off, just super grateful to be here. Like, super awesome to get the invite. When I got the invite, I was like, Lou's reaching out to me through somebody else. Like, Lou's at that level. Oh my gosh.
people
Either
will
I'm
call
getting
your people.
scammed, or I'm either getting scammed, or Lou has
Stepped up his game.
stepped the game up. I'll respond. She's like, do you ever Transformers? I'm like, I think I just sent a smiley face. Like, nah, you still sleep on the couch. Like,
Yeah.
we're here. But yeah, no, so just grateful to be here, man. I think that this is awesome. Watching the Male Mindset podcast, what you guys are about, who you're focusing on, the young hustlers out there wanting to improve their lives.
100%.
Yeah, that's who I am. I'm still just a young hustler trying to improve my life. It's what it's all about every day.
Yeah, I love it. And Lou, before we were on camera, you were just sharing so many things
Right.
that you admire about Brandon. So tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about that. Why, out of all the people that you know, why Brandon today on the show? What about
Yeah.
his character? What about his story motivated you to extend the
Yeah,
invitation?
so obviously we're like 7 years apart? And I actually resonate a lot with Brandon because the things that he's gone through, I've gone through myself as well, through business and in life and in sports. Obviously being a college athlete and not being able to play anymore and going into the corporate world. We actually opened up Solar back in 2012, I believe, at Seal Beach. So I was working for Brandon. We had a team out there. And honestly, he took me under his wing for a little bit. And, you know, it's funny because fast forward 10 years later, we're still rocking, you know, each other and helping each other out. And I post his stuff, he posts mine. We're in business together. So that's the cool part about it is that I never actually lost, you know, that leadership and mentoring from him. I just needed to kind of graduate and get back to that level where I needed him back in my life. And the biggest thing for me was his ability to just conquer a lot of different things. And he doesn't know this, but I really do, you know, appreciate who he is. I see him as a husband. I see him as a father as well. I've seen all of Brandon Holmes, not just like the reels and the solar stuff and the money and the cars. And that's all, you know, the highlight reels of people. But I know who my friend is. I know who the real Brandon is. And that's why he's here today, honestly.
I love that. Well, let's start from the beginning, Brandon. You were a high school athlete, college athlete, played basketball from what I understand. So talk to us about the role that athletics played in your life early on, kind of in the setup for the eventual success. What role did athletics and sports and practice and all that do for you?
Yeah, great question. I think it's now interesting to look at it because I've coached both my sons and my daughter, and currently we just started football for Mo. He's my youngest, just had his first tackle football game. So it's kind of nostalgic because my older son's been through the ranks and he's now in high school. And now my youngest son is having his first game, and I'm just like kind of like, it's my last go. And so watching the principles of hard work, dedication, just having to get up and grind through anything. And I also think like losing and getting back up and playing again is the most important thing that you learn from sports. And you don't know it because when you play at a high level, you win a lot. And you see this in like NFL QBs too. Like those guys, from the time they were 5,
They've been kicking ass.
they've
Forever.
never lost, right? They've never lost. They were the guy in their hometown. Their high school has statues of them. They go to college. They started as freshmen, and then they get to the NFL for the first time in their lives. They ride the bench for a year, and these guys don't know how to take it.
Mentally, that's tough.
It's tough. So when you play, and so I played at a high level. I did lose, not enough to go play some D1, but when I got to college and made the red shirt team, and then I tore my meniscus, and I had to retry out, and then they got rid of the sports programs. I went to Rick's. It's now BYUI. Mm-hmm. So the timing was just off, and I just wasn't supposed to play, and it was just what it was, and I was over. It was done for me. Realizing that it was just another game, that I got to get back up and go forward to the next game, even though it wasn't in sports.
It was life.
That was life, and that was what you learned in sports unknowingly growing up. That losing's okay, because in the loss is when you're growing the most. Yep. Yeah. And so that's what life is.
Tremendous. How do you view that with your children? Are they good losers? Are they bad losers? Are they different? How do you view that? Because and we've talked about this in other podcasts, but for the younger generation, even though that makes it sound like we're ancient, these participation trophies just show up and you'll get a medal, you'll get something. How do you view that?
Well, what's crazy is that his kids are so similar, but also so different. Yeah. It's wild.
So this is going to sound bad, but I don't give a fuck. So because I win and I lose.
Do you consider yourself a bad loser or a good loser?
No, I lose.
You lose.
So I think that, and I've continually learned this. Even this last 6 months of my life was another big loss, if you want to call it that. So I don't think that losing is the right category. I call it learning. So I would like to let's change the vernacular quick. We either win or we learn. We don't lose. So as a coach, I've coached both my sons football from flag football from the time they were 5 all the way to my son now is 15. And I'm re-coaching my other son, 5, 6, 7. He's 8 now, starting to tackle. And I coached his flag the whole way as the head coach. I say that because when they were 5, I send out a 3-page memorandum to the parents, 5 years old. Says, these are the principles. These are our guiding principles: grit, tenacity, hard work, determination. Like, we don't quit. Here are our rules. 1, you have to look if you're passing the ball. Like, so the rules are simple.
Yeah.
2, like, no sitting or walking on the field. But what that does is that instills in these 5-year-olds that there's rules to play by. If you can win these rules and you master these rules and you can buy into these principles, we'll win. Now, the first year I coached him, there was like just these snot-nosed kids that we had to like gather up in the neighborhood to get enough kids on the team. And we went all the way through and we lost in the championship. And so now the next year coming back, all these parents wanted to be on the team.
Yeah.
And I lost like 5 parents when I sent out the memorandum. They're like, they're 5. This is ridiculous.
Oh,
like,
really?
Yeah, wow. Like, this is not serious. You're taking this too serious. And I'm like, you think I'm taking this too serious? Like, yes, this is a 3-page memorandum. Yes, I make your kids and you sign this. And yes, there's rules. Like, but if you think this is too serious, they're going to have a really hard time running a business when they're 20. Yeah. Like, they won't be ready.
And see, that's so cool because if you guys are actually listening to this, he's setting up these kids and honestly the parents also for that little success factor that these kids need through their life. But people don't really see that. They see it as, oh, well, they're 5. Well, yeah, but this is going to be a long-term learning experience for these children.
That's right. So when we lost the first year, but we had a successful season, those same parents wanted to come back on the team. The spots were full. And if you bought into my program or not, that year we went on to win the championship. The next year we won this championship. We got invited to state, won state. And the next year we won the whole thing and we won state and region. Wow, so wild. This little flag football team of mine, like crushed. We lost 1 game that first year once, and then they never lost again.
Wow. That's crazy.
And so the mentality though was I kept the pressure on the whole time. And so I'd get it all the time. Like, I'd show up, and we were the Rams, obviously. I'm from LA. So I'd like show full Rams gear. And the other coach would always be like, don't you think that's a little excessive? And literally my response was, don't you think that the way that you don't show up is excessive? He's like, huh? Like, that's low blow. I'm like, is it? Like, I thought we were just jiving. Like, I thought it was jiving. Like, you look good, man, if you weren't a coach, but you're a coach, so you should show up. And like, we kind of had this little stand up, and luckily we won. But now they're playing tackle this year, and Mo's the starting quarterback. He ran all the reps. He was the only kid that didn't. There was a couple of kids that didn't cry, and he scored 3 touchdowns. And when the game's on the line, 55 seconds, we're down by 1. Who are you going to run the ball to? Mo runs it in, scores, and they win the game. We've been prepping that moment since he was 5, right?
How old is he now? 15?
He's 8.
8.
8.
Okay,
Yeah, that's the other one. So this is just a flag till now.
Flag till now.
So even if they lost, that's okay. Like, we're getting up, we're going back at it again. But that's just, we're learning. What did we do different? And we're watching film. I watch film every night with him about the game. We go over his little game films. And that's how I do everything in my life, though. How you do anything is how you do everything. And I treat my coaching like I treat my businesses.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to 2 key concepts. Number 1 is from a young age establishing those founding principles that are going to translate to other aspects of your life.
100%.
But then also what you just said, how you do anything is how you do everything, right? And so talk to us a little bit about your businesses, obviously being successful in sports, your kids, that work-life balance, the parenting. Talk to us a little bit in a professional sense. Do you find yourself being the same way, as in even with small stuff of a 5-year-old, flag football team, you kind of put it out there, you put a little bit of pressure on. Talk to us a little bit about that.
So I put a lot of pressure on, and I like it. I like pressure. And this is so tough because I feel like when we do these, or when you write a book or you speak on stage, and I've spoken in front of 2,500 people before, you feel like, well, this is my speech, this is where I'm at, and I'm not. Like, I'm still learning. So I'm learning that the pressure that I've been applying sometimes has been too much, and I had a situation where I did come under a big learning experience, and I did crack. And it's how you put yourself back together in the cracking moments that I've been prepping for my whole life, because this crack was big, and we can go into it later. But I want to touch on one thing, and it ties into what you said. So my other son, he had torn his ACL. He got tackled he was the quarterback as well. He got tackled by a kid, dove, tore his ACL, rehabbed, came back the next year. They did it again. And so to watch him this year choose not to play football, when football's been his life, Elijah, it's been his life since when he was 2, and he would cry and fuss. I'd put on old black and white Super Bowl games, and he would just sit there and stop crying. Like, football was his life, his brain. And so to watch him choose not to play this year, for me as a dad, was really hard.
Right.
For him, because I know how much he loves it. And so to be able to parent him the way he needs to be parented through this moment is not the way I'm putting pressure on my son to run in with 55 seconds and score and win the touchdown. I'm trying to find the ways to connect with my 15-year-old son the way he needs to be connected with right now. And I've learned that the last few years it's different.
What are
it's
some of those
super
differences? I find that so interesting for the dads that are listening that have multiple children. How do you recognize that, and what are some of those differences for you specifically?
And I'm guessing that it's different dynamics with different kids, how you talk to the kids, they take it in differently, right? I think that plays a huge role, because in my household, we're literally all completely different.
Yep.
So my father had to learn and understand that he couldn't talk to us the exact same, especially in sports. Like, baseball was our life. Literally to this day, my brother's a freaking badass, and he's gonna probably go play D1. But it was the same thing. My father instilled all these things at a younger age, because that's what his father did to him, And I think it's a ripple effect at this point.
Yeah, and in my case, my parents parented us all the exact same, and we all reacted different to it. But there wasn't a lot of nuance there, so I find that so interesting for the parents that are listening.
Most parents do that way. That's rare. Like, I mentor thousands of young men and women, and most of the people from our generation, they have been raised under this negative guise of don't and you should do this and don't do this, and scarcity, right? Go to school, get the degree. I think we're coming out of that now, primarily with my parenting with my kids, but our parents were very much similar. And my wife she's the second youngest of 9. And so she's big on individual parenting because she didn't get that. So I'm going to tip my hat to my wife big time, because I have my oldest daughter that if I raise my voice at all, and I'm a passionate person, I'll just start yelling because I just get excited. Like, and I'll get loud at this. Like, I'll just start getting loud and get excited. Like, I'm just a very passionate, I'm an emotional guy in parameters. And if my daughter feels my emotion, good or bad, she shuts down completely. And so if I raise my voice, which my other daughter, if I don't get emotional, she won't listen. Like, my wife will try to be knocked, she won't listen. It's not until I say, get the brush and I will swat your rear if you don't get in line.
Then she moves.
Fine. Like, and she'll come back at me with that same energy, because that's her energy. And I'm not like some mean parent. If you guys know my Daisy, I feel sorry for the fool who decides to take on that project.
It's 100%, bro. Don't mess with Daisy.
Good luck. But I've raised her that way because she'll be the CEO.
Because that's what she needed.
She'll run all my companies. She'll run all of them. And she'll do it with emotion and an iron fist, and she'll come strong because that's who she is. But Lily's my little flower, and if I yell, she won't have it. So you have got to learn, man, if I would have known this when I was 21, learn the love language of each of your kids, especially of your spouse, and deliver that. We're so programmed to deliver our love language to somebody
instead of theirs.
That's right. And they take that as non-love completely.
And sometimes you feel that you're doing the right thing. Like, you feel that
do.
I'm giving everything, I'm doing everything, but they're not receiving it. And then there's this confusion of, well, why aren't you satisfied if I'm doing everything that I think that I should be doing? Now, you said something key. You said you're an emotional person within parameters.
Sure.
I feel like that end within parameters comes from experience. As a dude, where we often don't talk about our emotions, we often put a cap on it. How do you process that? How do you, when you feel yourself getting emotional, highs or lows, how do you process that so that you remain within parameters? The fact that you added that at the end, I thought was interesting.
Yeah. So every situation, I think it's all situational, and it all depends on like who is in the circle at the time, right? So most people don't get this. Like, some people will handle men and their friends and ask questions that are totally cool and have jovial conversations about sex and women and whatever.
Right.
And then there's a woman in the room and they're going to have that same type of conversation with the woman. And that's not okay. Like, that plants seeds and conversation. They could take it completely wrong unless you know them, right? Same thing with emotions. Like, if somebody triggered, like my daughter, if someone gets triggered from an emotion that I don't know, then I may lose the deal. I may not close the sale. I may lose a partner. I may lose, like, literally, this is exactly what's happened recently. So knowing who is in the room with you, being very aware of how they speak and how they're triggered off of emotions. When I say within parameters, I'm good to talk about me. I'll speak my truth, but I'll be very respectful of everybody else with what I know about them, right? Like, I won't start like crying here because you had a situation. Like, that's not the emotion I'm talking about. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. How do you view that, Lou, when, highs and lows, to not let it get out of control?
Yeah. I think for me, it goes back to everything we talked about, is that self-awareness. And I think a lot of you guys, if you can take a step back in rooms or situations where you have to read the room, you really do. And we do that when we're speaking, when we're at company parties, when we're at events. We've done it before. Like, you have to know where you're at, and you have to know the people that you're speaking to, right? I can't talk to a client the same as the other client that I just saw an hour ago, right? Emotions, background. One could be obese, one could be skinny. A lot of different factors play into that. So I think for me, how I view that is having a lot more self-awareness with your surroundings. And how do we do that? We learn those things by trial and error and understanding people, because we're in the people business, right? If you can understand people, or a person, I can sell them a freaking pen, right? You can sell them a freaking solar system like that because we know the person and how to handle those situations.
Yeah. And a lot of our audience are young dudes that want to run the business, do the entrepreneurship thing. At what point in your life did you decide to go from employee to entrepreneur? What was that leap like? Were you afraid? Did you start with something that was unknown? Did you kind of know it a little bit? But talk to us about that moment when you decided, I want to be my own boss, and what were some of those emotions that went with that?
So I'm going to speak super candidly, and I'm going to upset a lot of your viewers. But I think that there's levels to this shit, like big levels. And I never made the decision I was going to be an entrepreneur. Like, that's just who I am as a person. I've never once can remember like being an employee with a job, even though I was always running my own business. I've always had my own LLCs. I've always had my own accounting. I've always run my own, whatever it is. Even if I'm working for, let's say, Vivint Solar, I'm subcontracted as my own entity. And that's the relationship I had to have to work with them, right? So when I was young, luckily I grew up around this. Like, I grew up poorer than anyone else and richer than everyone else. Like, we had these highs and lows because my dad was an entrepreneur. My pops was kind of credited to being like the godfather of coaching, like telemarketing. His clients were Tony Robbins, Zig Ziglar, Dennis Waitley, Tom Hopkins, Stephen Covey. I got to meet these guys when I was like 13, 14. And so I got to watch him go from, we were living in my grandma's like living room when it was me, my mom, and my dad. My mom was pregnant with my brother. And my dad had wrote a book on how to be successful. And he put his home phone number in the back. Just, if you think people have questions, this is 1983, right? Puts his home number in the back. And it was my grandma's number because we didn't have a home number. And the first sales floor was my grandma's living room. We spliced 5 wires with 5 little rotary phones. My dad had a chalkboard in front of the living room with every page number in his book. And what would happen was his brothers and his friends were picking the phones up when people were calling in on the book. And they'd yell out the question. He'd point to the page number. They'd go to the page and read the page to the client. Coaching was born. That was the very first coaching floor
That's
ever.
wild.
Ever.
You never told me this.
Ever, yeah.
That is wild.
I grew up on that sales floor. That was my upbringing. And so it was kind of unique, but I did get the back view of all of these gurus and these people. So I have a very different view of these people. Some guys are super legit. Most are fake as fuck. And I don't like buy into a lot of them because I did get to see that backside, the reality, right? Yeah. So watching my dad go through that, we lost everything. We had nothing. And then he sells 500,000 copies of his book that he published on a credit card. We didn't have a car. Then all of a sudden, he makes $8 million on the book, and then 92% of everyone that bought the book calls the number, and he's selling $200 coaching packages to everybody. Now we got 10 million. We're flying on jets to Hawaii, and I'm like,
what happened?
What happened? Like, you know. So I grew up the rich kid, the poor kid, the kid with the new J's, the kid on free lunch. Like, every year it was a new experience for me, which really shaped who I was at a very impressionable age.
Yeah.
So then when my dad sold his company, it was True North, Franklin Covey, or Franklin Quest, and Covey, they merged to make Franklin Covey. So my dad sold his business, his property, moved to Heber City. I was turning 18. And so when my dad got the Lambos and the Ferraris and the 100-acre ranch, I was going to college and went on my mission. So I kind of got to miss the high rise. But watching him go through that, like, that's who I am. That's in my DNA. I've always known that I was going to go do. And I love telling that story because I just have all of these memories of watching this. Yeah. And now as I'm coaching people, I'm helping people in their businesses. Like, I'm the prince of this shit. Like, this was like built in like, this is what it is. And I don't know why I love doing it, but it's because that's all I was like,
it's just ingrained in you ever since you were a child.
It's just an interesting thing. It's
and
interesting.
I hear situations regarding coaching, and I'd love to dive a little bit deeper into your mindset on this. You mentioned that a lot of the coaches are fake. Some are legit, some are fake.
Yeah.
People spend and waste so much money on these coaches and they don't end up getting results. So for someone that is thinking that they need a coach, maybe they've seen a couple podcasts, maybe they've been recommended a book or two, and they're like, man, should I jump into this coaching or not? In your opinion, living it ever since you were a child and seeing all the entire spectrum, what are some things to watch out for? What are some things that maybe people aren't really privy to when you're thinking about getting a coach? Talk to us about that, because I find that super interesting from your perspective.
Yeah. So the truth is that if everyone is going to be honest, when you listen to somebody, you know.
100%.
You know. Like, I have a client of mine who, because I just went through this, I had to get radiation and have 3 surgeries. Like, I just had a major event in my life. And I wasn't on top of all of my clients, and I let them know. And one of my clients really needed help, and so he went to another coach. And I'm watching him with his coach, and someone commented on it in my behalf, like, hey, man, he'll be with him for about 3 months. This guy looks super fake, right? And so just watching these other coaches, like, cross over from industries, or when you see, like, the realest one out there, and again, I've shaken hands with many of these guys, all the big ones, like the old ones. Tony Robbins is the real deal. When I was, how was I, 9? Stayed in his house in Hawaii. Like, when we flew out there, we got to go. I was the youngest kid to ever do one of his fire walks and jump to the pole, like, when I was 13. So, and I haven't talked to, like, he wouldn't know my dad. He wouldn't remember me. I was a little kid, right? But watching him live his life and then going to his house and seeing him in his family setting, like, he's the real deal. There are other people I won't mention that when we would go to the after party of an event, they'd have 2 other girls and their wife was back in Atlanta and they're in Miami with these 2 women. And they were on the stage talking about loyalty and being honorable. And I remember watching that being like,
wait, what?
That's so disgusting.
Yeah.
Be who you are, speak your truth, be honest about it. But when the moment that you start saying and doing different things, I have a real, that's hard for me to, because I watch that.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
What about people that want to be coaches? Because in today's day and age, there's a lot of 22-year-old marriage coaches that are single, life coaches and shit like that. What about for someone that thinks that they have what it takes or wants to be a coach and wants to take that route?
So, and I say this about myself, like, go find the coach that got the results that you want. So I didn't start coaching until I was 35. I didn't start coaching until I started ran my own companies, until we were doing 250 million in rev a year. Like, at that point, I have information that can help level up. Now, that doesn't mean you can't, like, help somebody. And I'm all about, like, online education and helping somebody, because the interesting part is if you've been through something, you can reach out and help somebody. Like, how do I say this? Depending the level of your coaching that you want to engage somebody on, it's okay to find someone who's not super qualified if they've been through what you're going through and you feel they can help you.
Yeah.
Here's how I view coaching for me is, if I can just help that one 20-year-old rep who's out knocking doors and he's needing to buy a $500 ring for the girl that he's trying to impress, because that's who I was. That's why I went out my first summer to knock doors. If I can teach him a couple other skill sets to get him to make that extra $500 to buy the ring, I'm talking to him. That's my client base. And I make it really, really small. I solve his problem.
For him, specifically.
Just him. It's me. Because how I view coaching is, and I guess from my pops, was, how much would you pay? How much would you pay? Literally. How old are you right now?
32.
32?
34.
34. How much would y'all pay to go back 20 years, talk to the 16, 18-year-old selves, and you can tell yourself 5 bits of information? Any 5. Whether it's the lottery numbers, whether it's who won the Conor McGregor fight.
Buy Bitcoin.
You can buy Bitcoin. You can tell yourself any 5 things. Yeah. What would you pay to go back in time?
No, it's priceless. 1,000%.
I'd figure out ways to, like, leverage billions of dollars on credit cards to pay off when I'm 18, right? Like, you'd figure out, right?
Yeah.
So what I see with coaching is I am going back in time and telling the 20-year-old myself in Denver knocking doors for the first time what I know now. I'm giving you the fucking cheat code, my cheat code. Now, I'm not here. I don't know if I could coach her. I don't know if I could coach you. I don't know. I'm not for everyone. I'm for that one person. And what I found is as I drill down my niche, my knowledge is bigger than I thought. And my target is way bigger than I thought it was, because I only see that one person. And so if you're wanting to get into coaching, if you want to focus on coaching, focus on that one person. But then the truth is that at 40 now, the experiences I've had, the wins and learning experiences I've gone through, my target market is actually really big.
Huge. Because there are millions of that 20-year-old kid, right?
That's right. But that overwhelms me. That overwhelms everyone to where they stop and they don't feel like they can be a coach or share their knowledge. So I'm a proponent of everyone being a coach or helping, but I'm not a proponent of a 21-year-old being a marriage counselor because they got 1 year of marriage under their belt. I was a great marriage counselor after 1 year of marriage, like, right? Like, but now 20 years, God, I got a few things I could teach you now.
Right.
Now I can engage in that type of coaching. So it depends. The question is, depends.
It depends. What about you, Lou? When maybe some of your athletes, they do a show or two and they're like, hey, people are starting to hit me up. They're trying to ask me for pointers. What route do you take in giving them advice if they want to also get into coaching? It's basically the same question.
Honestly, and I love what B said was kind of finding your own niche. Because my niche is different, right? I have a very, very wide range of people I can train. Yes, in the past 4 years, I've gotten more into athletes. We're winning. We're getting pro cards. We're advancing. We're evolving because I'm evolving, right? So my athletes evolve, right? So it's gotten to a point. Example, I have 2 guys that are starting September 1st to be, trainers for me. And for me, it's kind of crazy. I see myself in them. Does that make sense? I see like, oh my gosh, like I was them literally 12 years ago as a 24, 25-year-old kid being able to like, okay, like what's my next move and my next step? And I see that want. I see that hunger. If I see it, I'm going to reach out. I'm going to perfect it. I'm going to tweak it. And then I'm going to start them, how we do it here is a little bit different. We start with a shadowing program, right? They shadow me for a couple months, and they shadow Cass as well, training, and then I go into the nutrition factors of it. Then we go to the LLC process. So all of that for me is I need to be able to coach this person and mold them into the great coach that they could be. On the other side, I get people that ask me for a job, and they think they know it all. And they're 24 years old, and they've done one show. That's where the problem happens because I need to be able to coach you and you be coachable because that's the person that I was. I went into my room with this guy and then Mike Manfrey and I just shut my mouth and I listened because I wanted to have that experience. Now it takes time for experience, it takes learning for an experience. And I think for me, I want to have the people that are hungry, but I also want the people that do it for other people and to help the people become successful in their weight loss journey.
So I'm going to share a quick story and give a shout out here. So when me and Lou first partnered on doing the Transform World concept, I came to Lou and I was getting mad at Lou because I'm like, you don't let this person go to another trainer. If they're in our pack, keep them. Mm-hmm. You've got to train them. And Lou's like, I can't. They're going to another level that I haven't coached yet. We were in a yelling match one night. I'm like, dude, you can't let them leave. Like, we'll go get someone else. Like, once they're in the family, we got to keep. Yeah. And to his credit, he was like, once they get to this status, there is another coach that will take them there. And I didn't understand it. Now I'm like, well done. Like, good job. Like, I didn't know that of the industry. Now I'm more queued up on bodybuilding, how this works. And he did the right thing there because that's exactly what I'm talking about. I didn't get it. But if you're looking for a coach, and when you are looking, there is a specific person who needs to come learn from Lou, right? And watch that process, get client. There's not another person that gets more clients in the industry than this guy. Like, the door is always revolving. It's crazy, right? People are coming in all the time. That's the one thing you can't, that's amazing. But for me, last thing, sorry. No, for me on this last piece was when I went through my last injury. So I tore my bicep tendon. I grew a floating bone that I had to get radiation on. They went in for surgery, pulled it out, reattached the tendon, retore the tendon that night, re-radiation, retore it, all in like a 30-day period. So it was like crazy. I was super jacked up. I couldn't even look at my phone, in a coma for like 2 days. It was just like this crazy moment.
Yeah.
So coming out of this, and I'm like, I need to find someone who can I can be so accountable to, it scares me. Like, because if I'm a coach, who are you going to go hire your coach? So I went and found the biggest, meanest motherfucker that I could find ever, the largest person on social media that I knew, that I thought to myself, who would I be afraid of telling I'm messed up on my macros?
That's who you go after.
And I went and hired Wes Watson just to hold me accountable. Just because if he yells, I'm gonna be like, oh shit, yeah, I messed up. Like, and I don't know if I'll ever meet the guy or whatever, but just to know that I'm texting him and sending him pictures that he's looking at it and he's gonna have a comment, that guy could probably take me out. And for my psyche at this moment of my life, I hired the biggest, baddest, best guy that could hold me accountable in this space because I wanted that. Yeah. I needed that. Now, he's not married. He doesn't have kids. I'm not going to go to him on marriage counseling. I'm not listening to a lot of
specific thing.
Yeah, I want him for this thing because he's the best in the thing that he's doing it and helping me through this moment.
Yeah.
That's where I'm going because he's been through this moment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And that's such an interesting dynamic because coming out of something so difficult, sometimes maybe the default might be to take a step back. Or like, you know what? It's been hard these last 30 days. I'm just going to take my foot off the gas and just, and you can rationalize that to yourself versus you saying, I need to go harder. I need to find more accountability. And so does that come natural to you? Is that something that you have to force yourself into? Where does that come from? Because that is very uncommon.
Yeah, and see, that was my question that I wanted to ask, bro, because I felt like you've had so many just life moments of breaking. And I've been through, like, with you through half of them, so I know, like, the deep shit, right? But what's cool, and I want you guys to listen to this, is this motherfucker never breaks. It's wild. Like, we've gone through so many stuff, and we've been at home literally at 1 a.m. talking, like, I'm crying, he's crying, like, what the fuck is happening? But he never breaks, right? And I never told you this, but I have a tat here of a palm tree.
I'm just kidding.
And actually, Cass, we were in Hawaii and we got it, and he goes like, "Babe, this is a great tat for you because you honestly never break." And I thought about it. I was like, "Oh my gosh, like that actually like symbolizes like part of B Holmes in my life." Which I actually never told you that, P.S. But I've seen so much.
Tat of me? You didn't tell me
I
this?
know. But no, it was the idea, and I guess is my friendship group. Like, my friends don't fucking break. Like, this is why I have you guys as friends and entrepreneurs, and we're changing the world for that reason. So explain to me your why, because you always take a step back and you come right back, and that's so awesome, bro.
Yeah, man, I'll be honest, like, I break. I break. And I didn't think I did.
Right.
This last one broke me. And I think the universe has a way of humbling you to teach you the lessons that you need to learn. And I've been on like a 15-year like high. Like I've done the biggest things, made a lot of money, had the most success that I could ever think. And then the last little bit has been so hard that I did break. Again, when I found out I had to get radiation on my arm,
right,
and going through that, like that was a whole new learning experience for me. And then seeing the other little kids in the
in the hospital.
Yeah, man. Like here I am, just getting my arm done, and here they are having it like on their brains, and they're all alone. And here I am donating this money to like make these machines, and they don't want that. You don't want that machine. It's, in that moment, all you want is time. They want people. They're there by themselves. It's 2 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon. Their parents are at work, and they can't afford it. So it's like my perspective of how I need to serve was completely changed. And that broke me a little bit. And then when I retore it, that broke me a little bit. And then the business that we sold ended up not selling, and this transaction went sideways. And I learned a massive lesson, and I broke a little bit. and my family had issues in my family, and I broke. And all of a sudden, I just completely broke. And it was like, I don't know if I'm going to get asked. And I did that. It wasn't until I heard other people spit back the rhetoric, my rhetoric, like the story I was telling people about my arm and the radiation and how this is going to work and the surgeries. And I wasn't lying. I wasn't like making it up. Like, this is what happened. But the sounds and the story I heard back to me, I'm like, God, I sound like a pathetic bitch. Like, I just heard it. And I'm like, when somebody said, that makes total sense why you'd be out of commission. Like, that makes sense. Like, it's okay that you are not doing your thing. It's okay that you need to take time. Like, there's no harm because it's okay. I remember being like, that's not okay. Like, that's not okay. Like, stop being a bitch, get up and move. No one's going to save you. Like, no one is here to save me. Yeah. Like, you hear other guys talk on Instagram about that. Like, I wonder what they went through, and I'm not here to judge, but if they really went through that and you really have no one to save you and you got to pull yourself up off the ground of a situation where you are completely broken, like, you get to that point that, okay, I've got to go. I've got to start moving again. And I fall back to my habits. I have daily habits. I have daily routines that I don't stop. I've never stopped. I call it the general's tent. And I call them my SEMPs, spiritual, emotional, mental, physical, social. I touch 30 minutes every day on these things in my general's tent. I do this every day. I have done it for 30 years. And this is what gives me my strength. I go back to this routine. And that's what I train guys on. That's what I coach people on, is how to get through hard moments. I'm an expert in the subject matter. And this is how you get through it. You have routines, you stick to it. Go get someone to help you. When I did my back, I came to Lou. I didn't need someone to yell at me and like pull me out of a dark hole. I needed a friend to help me keep accountable and come to the gym. That's what I needed when I had my back surgery. I need someone I don't know so I can be mad at them and kind of fight them internally so that they can cuss me out and have me have like this like stranger, I need to show up because they don't know me kind of feeling. I know that about myself. So that's what I wanted on this time. And so what's the answer? Habits. Every day, you have to master the mundane. Everyone wants to go slay the dragon when the dragon shows up. But that's why I said a lot of people are going to hate me on this podcast, because not everyone's an entrepreneur. If you don't master the mundane day in, day out, you won't be ready to go slay the dragon when the dragon shows up. You're going to run out there and get your ass fried.
Happens so often, and then
That's right.
And then we start to question. The whole mental cascade starts to happen. Right? I'm not worthy or whatever. But the reality is, you weren't ever ready in the first place.
And there's levels. Like, you could get so good and you want to go do 3 million? That's fine. You can go do that. But if you really want to go I want to go be Gary Vee. Really? Like, the shit he had to go through to get to that level, he broke a lot of times. He had to have. Because I'm not there yet. And I'm saying I broke this much to be at this level. Like, do I really want to go break that much more to get to the next level? I don't know.
There's a price to pay.
There's a price to
always
pay.
a price to pay. And so you mentioned your coaching. I'd like to get into that a little bit and these habits. So share with us a couple of maybe things that somebody could start to do tomorrow that might start to make a difference for them.
Sweet.
And that's a good question, because I feel like a lot of our viewers, that 19 to 30 demographic, sometimes don't really know what to do or how to start habits or how to start becoming just a better fucking man,
So I think that the easiest thing to start implementing, and this isn't all my material. This comes from Tony Robbins, Zig Ziglar, the guys I grew up on. And what I found was that we are all like 5-part beings. You can be 7, 10, 3, I don't know, but I call it 5. I call it your SEMPs. SEMPS, little acronym for spiritual, emotional, mental, physical, social. And the quick backstory is, the first time I was 32 years old, I made my first $1 million, and I had lived a crazy unbalanced lifestyle. Like, didn't see my family, my kids. And at the end of the year, after I'd made $1 million, I remember sitting there looking at being like, that's it? Like, Where's the champagne and the streamers and the, like, I thought there would be a celebration.
The Lambos.
Where the heck is I'm a millionaire. Like, no, I feel like I'm a loser. Like, this is crazy. And I went through and I audited my life, and I realized I hadn't done any real emotional and spiritual connecting. Like, I'd missed those pieces. And so the next year, I focused on all of those independent pieces. I doubled my money, and I felt like I had all the connection with my family, my wife, myself, my God, like my world, so much more, because I got more crazy. Like, I was not balanced, like, even more, but I was intrapersonally balanced way more. Okay. The road to success is going to be super unbalanced. So if you can get balancing inside your intrapersonal life every day, then you can maintain this unbalanced lifestyle, which is what I teach. So in the SEMPs, every day, 30 minutes, each of them, spiritual, whatever you want to do to connect to the higher power. And remember, you're not the end all be all, whether that's meditation, praying, reading Holy Writ, being out in nature, being grateful. Those are all spiritual. Emotional, saying powerful affirmations, writing in your journal, saying, I've got actually a list of 10 emotional ones because it's a whole.
Yeah, he would make me say those things every single morning. I still do them.
I love myself 100 times, like making sure, getting your power words, having your vision statements, mission statements, guiding principles, all emotional. Mental, reading good books. I have a book club that everyone can join, hop on, read the book of the month, do a quick little synopsis, get a free dinner. So I try to promote mental health and reading. And then physical, gym, yoga, diet, sleep, all that stuff. And then social is reaching out to somebody in your circles and connecting in a deep emotional way with somebody else. So not just a text, but in my office, I have a whole drawer full of thank you cards. And every day I pull one out and I just write a thank you note to somebody else. So that's my little quick hack of doing that. And you'll learn, and I do those things 30 minutes, so it's 2.5 hours every day. And I do it first thing in the morning. And I call that the general's tent. So generally stated, the battles are won in the general's tent. So I have specific places in my house and at the gym that I have my general's tent, whether I work out and then I go to an ice bath and then I steam and then I go through my goals and I say my affirmations and then I pray and then I write out my journaling and then I write out my goals. And by the time I leave the gym, like, I'm ready to fucking war. Like, who's going to stop me? If I've done all those things in my day, and this is where I learned on the doors, like, if you teach door-to-door guys how to do this in the general's tent, they're going to go hit the doors and they're not going to be stopped. I have it at real estate agents, mortgage brokers. You start banging the phones. If you do this every day, who's going to stop you? There's no client out there prepping to beat you.
And you're far ahead. That's my comment.
Because of who you are inside. You're intra-balanced. Now you can go be unbalanced in life.
Yeah. And what I hear from all of that is that you have to be ultra intentional.
Super.
100%.
You have to be intentional. And so many of us, and I've fallen into this, and maybe you guys have too, you just kind of go with the flow. You just go with the day. You just wake up when the alarm goes off and you go to work, you try to grab something to eat. And then, I was having a conversation with Lou of, for so long, I was just living off of gas station food because I was a realtor. So going around showing homes and you just stop because you got to pee and then you just grab something from the gas station and that's it. You go home, you're tired, you go to bed. But being intentional and having that structure, I think is super, super valuable. So how can people plug into you if they're listening to this and like, man, that is it. Like, I would love to learn that.
Yeah.
How can people find you, plug into you, and get more info?
Great. So I've got on my all social media outlets, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, but my handles are bholmes.life and my program's called the B-Print. So you can go on bholmes.com, bprint.life, bholmes.life. All those handles work. And then I have a podcast called Doors to Success where I teach people how to knock, open, and conquer the different doors of success in their lives, whether that be door knocking or whether that be marriage, whether that be anything, right? Mental health, men's health, all of that stuff, gym, workouts, stuff like that. And I think that being intentional, but the whole, you touched on it briefly. You said the imposter syndrome, like we don't believe it. There are days that I get up and I feel like I shouldn't be doing it. Like that I'm not, like I shouldn't, I don't want to do it. I'm not worthy enough to do it. Like I'm going to lose everything today. Like this is the day that it all comes crumbling. Like I have those thoughts. And so those they've never stopped. They've actually increased. The more success I've gotten, the more it is increased.
Yeah.
And so all the intentionalism has to get increased. So having someone that's been through that getting in these habits, these groups. So every Friday at noon Mountain Standard Time, I have a call called the General's Tent. It's open for everyone. Hop on. We have CEOs talking, business people talking. So anytime you can get with a group and touch where you feel powerful, you have other people that help build you up, and you get information that you feel intentionally powerful, do it. Do it.
Do it.
I love that.
Make the time, do it, put it on your calendar, put it on your schedule. And I love the fact of having a blueprint. And so many of us need that. So many dudes need that, of just tell me what to do, give me some ideas. And once you implement it, then you're on your way. And I love what you said, that if whatever you do, if you're on the phones, if you're in sales, if you can set your day up, you're so far ahead of 99% of people that are just floating and just kind of going with the flow of
That's
whatever
so true.
the day gives, right?
I've had the exact same routine probably since 2013. After I came back from us opening up that office down there, I started bodybuilding, and nothing has actually changed. I still read my books in the morning. I do my morning walks, my morning cardio. It's getting a little bit colder, so I'm gonna start doing cardio in the morning. Again, making my meals. I listen to one podcast. I make sure I read 30 minutes of a book of the month. I usually do that on my own. And again, I've had all these habits for so long, and people always ask, like, why are you always so good and on point and intentional? I'm like, because that's how I run my life.
Start your
If
day
I
right.
don't run my life that way, I feel completely out of whack, right? But I do all those things, and Cass actually has done these things now, because she's following up to what I'm doing, which we're gonna give into our kids. It all starts from us. Everything we do is from us, and we pass it on to the people that actually see what we're actually doing as an intentional, phase or pattern in our lives for the greater good, right?
Without a doubt.
And I try to implement that to a lot of my clients, and the ones that do actually have a better understanding of life, success, and their patterns start becoming better, because everything that we're teaching is all very similar, right? And I think the biggest thing for you guys is need to understand that in life you have to have direction, you have to have alignment, you have to have balance. You're gonna have a little bit crazy chaos, right? But at the end of the day, it's gonna be okay if you are prepared, and if you have prepared yourself, and you actually are being intentional with your life. And I don't think you're gonna have too much of a hard time if you know what you're doing.
Figuring it out, right? So, Brandon, we'll wrap up with these two questions. Brandon, today, what are you excited about, and what are you afraid of today, sitting on this couch? At what age? How old are you?
I'm 40.
At 40. What are you excited about, and what are you afraid of sitting here at age 40?
What I'm excited about. So we just launched with the coaching program. We've got it now where I've got a program for the masses. So a monthly low barrier entry to where you can watch all my videos on the mindset, mentality, and sales, get on the General's Tent. And then I've got a medium one-to-many Zoom that's for like management. And then I've got like an upper echelon that's one-on-one coaching for the executives. So that's all getting launched, and I've got some great partners that we're working with to get it implemented. And so watching that thing develop has been kind of like my baby, my project. And it's now at a place where we're taking it to market, and I've slowly started dropping stuff, and the responses have been like crazy good. I've got clients that are in all areas. I thought it would just be door-to-door people. I've got a dental practice. We've got a diabetes and medical device company. They've all hired me to come run their sales and recruiting. I've got 2 roofing companies. I've got 3 solar companies. I've got a vodka and a tequila company. I've got an exotic car dealer. We've got a Windows company. I've got a software company. And they're all hiring me to come teach them about life, business, and being successful. And I feel like I'm not successful, but here they are wanting me to come show them what I've done. And so that's just got to I'm about to blow it up, and I'm really excited about that. Like, it's about to go to the masses. So that's been really fun, and I'm super excited about that. I'm most excited about our phase of life, though, with what I'm doing, because my wife has now, our kids are all old enough and in school and don't need us. So she's being really intentional about what she's wanting to do in health and incorporating us working on it together. That's what I'm most excited about, is doing it with her.
That's the best thing is doing it with your partner.
Yeah, she's my best friend. She's my soulmate. Like, she's my ride or die. She's everything. Been married for 20 years, 4 kiddos, and yeah, she could have done a way better job than me at being the provider, and so I'm excited to watch her shine. What I'm scared of, shit, man, I am scared of things that don't exist. I am scared of everything that doesn't exist. And I think it's hard to like quantify this, because when you go through the thing you think you're scared of and you live to tell the tale, I'm still scared of it, but it actually didn't exist. Fear was just my imagination. The thing still exists. I've just learned how to cope with it, right? Like, this business failing was my biggest fear. And I was so scared of having it fail. But when it didn't get pulled off the way the acquisition was supposed to, I was so afraid of that I shut down a lot of areas of my life. But now I've like lived through it, and I'm okay. I'm not afraid of it. I'm not scared of it. But it didn't exist. It was just what happened, right? So I don't know what I'm scared of, other than I know it doesn't exist, and I'm going to see it and go through it and learn that it wasn't real and keep progressing and keep winning.
Yeah, that's such an insightful answer. And
Yeah.
it reminds me of a quote. I don't remember who it's from, but it basically says, we suffer more in imagination than in reality.
100%.
And the reason why I ask that question is because often we see people who we deem to be successful, and you realize that they're human and they're afraid of things and they go through shit, and that's fine, and that's relatable, and that's normal. And so that's why for the most of our guests, I asked that question specifically, because most of us walk around with very real fears, very real, whatever it is, insecurities and stuff, but you still work, you still succeed, you still push through it. When for so many, we have this false idea that B. Holmes, he can't be afraid of anything. He can't be insecure. He can't. Yeah. It's just not real. It's just not real.
It's not real. Let me tell us one story, we'll end. The quote is, "A coward dies 1,000 deaths, but the hero lives but once." So we were in Las Vegas at Joe's Seafood Steakhouse, great restaurant. They have the greatest oysters and stone crab. My son Mo is there with me, and it's a lot of money. So I was gonna have Mo try an oyster, and Mo was excited about their desserts. They've got great desserts too. But he was like, "I'm not eating the oyster." I'm like, "You're gonna try the oyster." And he started to cry. And I'm like, "Why are you crying? Like, it's just an oyster. You're gonna taste it and realize you're okay. It's just a taste. It can't kill you. Like, why are you crying?" And I told him that quote, "A coward dies 1,000 deaths." He sat there the whole dinner crying over this oyster, and nothing was happening to him. He was just looking at it crying. And I'm like, "You realize how silly you are right now? Like, you're looking at an oyster crying because it's doing nothing to you. Like, you are imagining, what are you imagining? Like, that you're gonna like gag or throw up?" Or he's like, all of it. And I sat back and watched him, and I'm like, holy shit, we all do this. We are all cowards. We all die 1,000 deaths in our brain when we fear something that doesn't exist. Finally, he ate the oyster, chewed up and swallowed and jabbed. I'm like, "You good?"
Survived?
Nothing happened. Nothing. And he got his dessert. And he was happy he had his dessert. And he walked around like he was the hero. He's like, "I'm the hero. I ate the oyster." I'm like, "But you died 1,000 deaths." So I think in life, learning how to die less times in your mind,
Same time.
to just experience the heroes, the victors lap.
Yep.
It's all about the victory lap, baby, and get it there faster.
I love that. I love that, Brandon. Any closing thoughts, Lou?
No, I mean, I love it, and I hope you guys take a lot of information from this, because, again, our job as men, right, we've all gone through different cycles in our lives, you know, and I want you guys to understand that we're all doing this just to make you guys better. And the biggest thing for me, if you guys are battling something, if you guys are facing, you know, a hardship in life, reach out. We've had so many guests. You have me, you have B. Holmes, now you have Tony. We're all just here to help men become better. And we're actually giving you guys a lot of information. This is free information for all of you. Literally, today I posted a video. I trained, I don't know if you guys saw it, I trained my client and I showed everything that I was doing with him. That's free information for knowledge. You guys need to learn and start understanding. That way you guys can be better. Learning is, an expansion of different things. So.
Without a doubt. So, Brandon, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you,
Guys,
brother.
check him out. Follow him. If you need coaching, check him out.
Yep.
Sign up for his stuff. And with that being said, this has been episode number 16 of the Male Mind Podcast. Till next time, guys.